What's good, guys? I'm Dave, and in this video, I'm gonna help you find some things to do with your kids while you're visiting Denver. Our kid is 1.5 years old, but most of the things in this video are actually better for older kids. So by the end of this video, you'll be able to fill out at least a weekend, if not a week, with different activities to do in and around the city. While I'm sure you have friends to see and things to do, sometimes you just need some of that dedicated kid time to get through the day, and that's what this video is for. You've probably already looked up places like the Denver Zoo, the Natural History Museum, and maybe even the Denver Botanic Gardens. I'm not really going to go into those because chances are you saw those on TripAdvisor or on Yelp or something like that, so you were probably planning to go already. We're going to cover a bunch of different activities for people of all different interests in this video, so let's jump right into it. Let's kick things off with something that will probably be best for elementary school age kids. It's Hammonds Candy Factory in the north part of Denver. Quick disclaimer, this is actually a functioning candy factory, so it's in a pretty industrial area. It's not super cute from the outside, but if you're staying in the north suburbs or anywhere near Commerce City, this could be a fun, different, and free activity for you to do that's not on TripAdvisor and things like that. So again, this isn't a Willy Wonka-like magical candy factory. This is a real factory where they make candy that you see in stores all around the country. They do free short factory tours where you get to walk around and see how different candies are made, which is actually pretty cool, and you get a nice little educational video talking about the history of the company. At pretty much all times of the day, you'll see people making candies, candy canes if it's around the holidays, chocolates and things like that. They're packaging them, cutting them, doing all that kind of stuff. It might be as interesting for you as an adult as it is for your kids. And of course, they do have a shop inside the factory, and that part is pretty neat and it's cute inside. A bunch of the candies will always be on sale inevitably because there's always seasonal candies that they have extras of, so you can pick up a bunch there. You'll probably only be here for about an hour or so, but if you're in the area, maybe check out Hammonds. It could be something that your kids would be into. Okay, next up, if you're coming to Denver during the winter or summertime, check out Evergreen Lake, which is west of the city in Evergreen. And it's a great place for pictures and can be an awesome daytime outing for you and your family. During the winter months, as long as it's cold enough, the lake turns into the world's largest Zamboni-groomed outdoor skating rink, and it's honestly pretty magical. If people in your family can ice skate, this is an awesome place to go to make some memories and get some great pictures. The lake itself is huge, so even when it's busy, you're not bumping into people, and CNN actually listed this as one of the world's most beautiful ice skating rinks, and I'd agree. And during the summertime, the lake is, well, a lake, and you can do lake stuff. You can rent kayaks, paddle boards, all that kind of stuff, and it's in a really beautiful setting, and it's a great way to spend the day. Whether it's winter or summer, Evergreen Lake can be a great place to make some memories for active families who want to get out of the city and feel like they did something that was in nature, maybe a little bit into the mountains without going too far. It's obviously not inside of Denver, but it's a pretty cool spot, especially if you're staying out west. Next, opinions can be a little bit split on the Aquarium in Denver, but I'm personally a pretty big fan of it, especially for younger kids. Similar to the downtown aquarium in Houston, it's owned by Landry's restaurant groups, which makes it a very different kind of aquarium. It's not super huge or really science-y like other aquariums that you might have seen. So while it might lack a little bit in terms of size and education value, I do think that it makes up for it in overall charm and entertainment value for younger kids. The tanks are really easy for younger kids to see, so a lot of the tanks go from floor to ceiling, so you won't have to carry your kids around. They can generally just walk around on their own, and the overall vibe there is kind of like you're making your way through a line at Disneyland, but obviously it's less crowded. There are a bunch of really immersive rooms where you'll have fish and turtles and eels swimming all around you, and there's a really cool glass tunnel where you're surrounded by fish. Most kids are pretty into it as long as they like stuff like this. If you know that your kids just want to see the fish and you aren't in the mood to walk around an aquarium for 3 hours with a paper map in your hand, this might be a really good sized aquarium for you. It's pretty much one way the whole way through, and the kids will get a lot of action along the way. They'll see a bunch of fish and eels and turtles and stuff like that. And at the very end, they can also feed stingrays, which is a big hit with kids pretty much of all ages. Our son really likes it here, and we generally spend about 60 to 90 action-packed minutes here. And there's also a restaurant inside where you can make reservations and eat lunch or dinner while you're surrounded by fish swimming all around you. Personally, I've always found it a little bit ironic that the menu has a lot of seafood on it while there is seafood kind of swimming around you in the restaurant, but chances are your kids won't think about that as much as you will. But if you do the restaurant and the aquarium, you'll easily burn 2 hours, if not 3 here, if you need to burn some time in the middle of the day. If you're enjoying this video so far, please give it a like to help more people find it. Now back to the video. Next, this is a great spot for younger kids, and also if you're staying on the north side of town, maybe in the suburbs up there, it's the Butterfly Pavilion in Westminster. The Butterfly Pavilion will be moving to a larger location soon, so definitely check the website before, depending on when you see this video. Honestly, before I went to the Butterfly Pavilion, I thought it was going to be kind of stupid, but we brought our son here and he actually had a really good time. It's basically a really big greenhouse with some cool plants and a ton of butterflies flying all around. You'll see a ton of butterflies everywhere. This is not like a bird watching thing where you're trying to spot one. They're freaking everywhere, of all sizes and all colors. If your kids like things like this, they will have plenty to look at, even though it's not that big of a facility. If you take a few slow laps here, you'll probably spend about an hour here, maybe longer if your kids are the kinds that want to see every single butterfly and they're looking all around trying to find them. You might be able to spend a little bit longer. Outside of the butterfly area, there are small exhibits with reptiles and insects and other things to check out. It's definitely not like a zoo or an aquarium, but it comes with the price of admission. So if you find yourself up in the North Burbs, the Butterfly Pavilion can be a great way to burn an hour or more in a pretty relaxed setting before you move on with the rest of your day. Now let's check out something for older kids that's in the city, formerly known as Comedy Sports, which exists in other parts of the country. The Ride is a family-friendly, competitive improv show where they make up a whole show with point systems and things like that, using suggestions from the audience. As you probably know, most comedy shows are probably a little bit too mature for kids, but this is pretty family-friendly. It's more along the lines of like a Whose Line Is It Anyways, and I think that adults can have fun here too. They really limit the swearing and overtly sexual content there, but you can't really predict what's going to happen at any improv show because that's kind of the nature of what happens. But for the most part, it's a family-friendly show that most people will have a good time at. And yes, this is no Second City in Chicago. This will not be the funniest night of your life, but you will laugh. Your kids will probably have a good time. You know your kids best. You'll know if they're into something like this. This next one is just a general suggestion, but I always offer it up in this Denver Facebook group that I'm in when people are visiting the city with some elementary school, maybe middle school aged kids who are really into food and they're not picky eaters. I always give this suggestion and people are always pretty into it. If your kids are down for all kinds of food, even if they don't like it, they like to try it, think about doing a progressive meal at one of Denver's many food halls where you get an appetizer, a main, and a dessert from 3 different stalls that are inside one food hall. This way, it's kind of like your kid got to eat at 3 different restaurants while you got to stay at one venue, which makes your life a whole lot easier, and you got to check out a big part of Denver's ever-improving food scene, which is our food halls. If you're looking for an easy place to do this, check out Junction, which is right off the freeway in the south part of Denver. I think it's by far the most family-friendly food hall in Denver. The layout is really easy. You can keep an eye out on your kids. And there's like a Dave & Buster's next door and a movie theater, so there are some easy options if you want to make a whole day of it. Next, this one is kind of odd, but the Celestial Seasonings Tea Factory is in Boulder, which is north of Denver, and it might be an interesting thing to do with your kids, and you'll probably enjoy it too. This is where the same tea that you've seen at work, at the supermarket, and your doctor's office is made, and it's right here in Colorado. They offer tours throughout the day, but check the website before you head up that way to make sure that tours are up and running, but you'll be able to see and take in all the smells of a giant tea manufacturing facility in Colorado. Personally, I found the tour to actually be pretty interesting, and you can check out a bunch of different teas, ones that you haven't seen at your local supermarket, after you're done with the tour inside the shop. I realize that it might seem silly to buy a bunch of tea boxes that cost less than $5, probably like $2 or $3 when you get them at the store, but this might be a fun thing for your kids to do because they can check out all of these different varieties that they probably have never seen before, and maybe this is a fun way for them to remember the trip when they drink their tea once you come back home. You'll definitely see flavors that you haven't seen in your local supermarket, and if you come around the holidays, they have different mugs and displays and kind of fun things like that that will be easy, cheap souvenirs for you to take home. When you brew the teas at home, maybe this will be a fun way to talk about your trip to Colorado, and it will probably change the way that you see Celestial Seasonings for the rest of your life. This next one is a really inexpensive local option that's best if your kids are probably 3 or 4 or younger. It's the Inglewood Children's Farm near Cherry Hills Village. Very important note, this is mostly a summertime activity because the farm is generally open from Memorial Day to Labor Day with daytime hours, but during the holidays, there is a holiday train that runs throughout the park. It's not super big, but it's really cute if you have kids. While the park isn't a big place, they have a really cute train that takes you around the park, and that's actually pretty cool. And there's a petting zoo with pigs and goats and things like that, and your kids can interact with them inside the park. As of 2021, it was only $5 to have your kids take a train ride and getting into the petting zoo, so this is a pretty affordable way to spend the day, especially if you're here during the summertime. And the best part about this is that in the summertime, it's not like a crazy county fair where you're like shoulder to shoulder with people and you can tell the animals are stressed out. It's a pretty relaxed place to be. Because the petting zoo itself isn't that big, I could see older kids being kind of bored with it or thinking it's a little bit babyish, but younger kids generally have a pretty great time here. It's a great place for pictures when your kids are petting the different animals there, and it's a cool way to see a few animals and wildlife while you're here in Denver without committing a full day to the zoo. Next, if you're coming to Denver, you probably have read that we have a lot of parks, and while Wash Park is probably our best known one, I think that City Park has a lot to offer for kids as well. Wash Park is kind of more of your young professionals, exercise, volleyball in the grass kind of scene, but City Park is Denver's biggest park. It's adjacent to the Natural History Museum, and there are a lot of water activities that you can do in the pond that's inside the park. In the summertime, they also have a splash pad that kids can just run around with and go crazy in. And for adults, there are some pretty cool views of the city, and it's just a really big park, so you can walk around pretty much forever inside there. If your kids are a little older, you can rent a paddle boat with them, or maybe rent a kayak or a stand-up paddleboard. It's a good way to get kind of out on the water-ish while staying in the city. If going out to the lake in Evergreen doesn't make sense for your schedule because it is pretty far out west, City Park presents another pretty cool option in an urban setting that lets you check out one of Denver's biggest parks and have some cool physical activities to do while you're there. I know I said I wasn't going to mention these, but if you're coming out this way for the holiday season, check if you can get tickets to the Denver Zoo or the Denver Botanic Gardens for their holiday light shows. Both of these are exactly what you'd expect. The zoo and the garden put up a ton of Christmas lights and basically turn into a holiday spectacular after the sun goes down. It's pretty cool. If you're only able to do one, I would do the Botanic Gardens over the Denver Zoo, but it does sell out super fast. I think it's already sold out through Christmas this year, but you can go after Christmas. The light shows are just a little bit cooler at the Botanic Gardens. They do stuff that's timed to music and more interactive things. But at the zoo, they have elephants and giraffes, which, obviously they don't have those at the garden. This is obviously one of those videos that could go on and on forever, but I hope that this video helped you plan a really good weekend, if not a week, with different activities for you to have fun with your kids while you're visiting the city. Since you've made it this far, please give this video a like or share it with that person that you'll be coming to Denver with. If you're a local and you watch this video for some reason and you have some other great ideas of activities for people to do with their kids while they're in the city, definitely add them to the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you and your kids have a great trip to Denver.